Happy Valentine's Day, Midland, Texas, Buddy Webb. Did a Facebook post this morning, and I wanted to show a picture that was taken on Valentine's Day 2012, right after I got out of the hospital, and then show you some of the facts and evidence. I posted over to YouTube because I think a lot of people are not seeing the huge amount of evidences in this case. And so let me go ahead and just quickly start here. This is a Facebook post this morning I wrote, blocked Valentine's Day picture. I'm posting this picture even though I know it would be covered up on Facebook because it shows what my foot looked like 2 weeks after I was ambushed and shot in my home. There was 17 days of healing, but it's still graphic. What you're going to see is heinous and sick. We can't ever allow this to happen to another person. Remember, I was home and minding my own business. It could happen to you. Okay. When I got to the hospital on January 28th, I had 2 small holes in my foot, which the ER doctor described as a through-and-through gunshot wound. Well, that first, I turned all of them into bullet points on all this whole, all these different paragraphs on facts and evidence, and I have them at the bottom. So I'll just skip down there. First, I'll uncover the photo that was, I'm going to try to uncover it right here. Okay, and this was 17 days after I was shot, okay? And you can look inside my foot, okay? When I got to the hospital, I had 2 small holes in my foot, which the ER doctor described as a through-and-through gunshot wound. There it is right here. When I got to the hospital, January 20th, I had 2 small holes. The ER doctor describes it as through-and-through. And so I show the proof of that, okay? And this is the doctor's, ER doctor's report. Right ankle exhibits a through-and-through gunshot wound, which appears to have been sustained by a shotgun blast. It was unusual wording there for him to say that, appears, because what we believe and what it looks like is special ammunition was used, so it would appear that I was shot with a shotgun when that didn't happen. And you're going to see the evidence of that here in a minute. But it's real interesting he said that. When I left the hospital 10 days later, my heel bone was cut out and a giant hole was cut in the side that you could look into with lies being spread that I'd accidentally shot myself with my 12-gauge shotgun. Okay, so here's the nurse's notes from the ER, okay? And you can see here just minutes after I shot, and I'm going, their sirens going off. The alarms kept going off. And I'm talking about there was a white voice recorder in case something happens to me. And what it was the voice recorder was recording the burglar alarms going off. I shot during a home invasion. I have proof. Just go look. There's proof. I'm telling Detective Rodriguez that, okay? And at the time, I didn't know Detective Rodriguez was childhood friends with the ex-wife I just filed divorce on, okay? And what happened was she went sneaking in my house and her and her friends stole the proof. Okay, Rodriguez, she had her own thing. She didn't know that the nurse had documented me saying that. And what she said was, Buddy stated he was going to lock the door from the night, lock the door. His gun fell over and he accidentally shot himself. Okay, so you can tell the difference between what Rodriguez said and what the nurse said I said. And you know, it's easy to tell who's lying there. It was Rodriguez. Okay. We now know they took the X-rays of another person, put my name on them. The other person was missing his heel bone, so now we know why they cut my heel bone out in surgery. Okay, I was intentionally maimed and mutilated on purpose. This X-ray was taken 4 months before I was ambushed and shot in my home. And what it is showing what my heel bone looks like, okay? And the reason I show it, because I want to show the X-ray that's dated for the night of the shooting on 1/28/12. It's missing the heel bone. Do you see the heel bone's missing? Okay, see all them shotgun pellets? That's not my foot. I hadn't had surgery yet. Remember, I had 2 small holes in my foot when I got to the hospital. The ER doctor described as a through-and-through gunshot wound. This foot is missing the heel bone. That's not my foot. They took somebody else's foot and put my name on them. And that was the first proof, because later we're going to see that the timestamps on the X-rays were before they were even ordered. Okay. So here we go next. It's believed that the other guy was shot 11 days before me on January 17th, and he was shot with a shotgun, whereby I wasn't. Dr. Hinton stated he compared my X-rays from the 17th. The other ones I'd taken on the 19th, but I was shot 11 days later on the 28th. He wasn't looking at my X-rays. Dr. Hinton charged the insurance company for X-rays on the night of the murder attempt. Okay, now I'm going to show you this. This is Dr. Thomas Hinton, okay? And there was date April 12, 2012, and the injury date was 1/17/12. Okay, he compared them to other X-rays on 1/19/12 but I was shot on the 28th. So he wasn't looking at my x-rays, and that wasn't one single date. That's 2 different dates. So that's not a typo. Somebody tells me somebody else was shot with a shotgun 11 days before me, and I believe that was probably the owner of the foot and the faked x-rays. And then I found the insurance payment deal where Dr. Hinton charged the insurance company for x-rays on the night that I shot, and that's when we know them x-rays were faked. Okay, next one, bullet point. An accidental death would add an additional $500,000 to benefit. My life insurance booklets were taken by the ex-wife when we separated a few weeks earlier. Okay, my sister-in-law told me she saw these books while they were gone from my house. I separated from a 3-month marriage, separated for divorce, less than a month before I was to be shot. Okay, but what the books would tell you is I had a basic accidental death and a supplemental accidental death. Basically, if my murders ruled an accident, it added 2 times the annual base pay and $250,000. So roughly about an extra $500,000 on top of the home and the 401k and everything else. Okay, so on the next bullet, the big prize is my paid-for home, which has underground access to the facility that Rhonda Denman Rogers said was a half block away. I took a print screen of that. I'm on Facebook right now, and I said my home is sitting on the top of some underground facility. It's very important. And she says, yes, I know it's a half block away. Notice she didn't say 1 block. She didn't say 2 blocks, 3 blocks, or 3.5 blocks. It is a half block away. She is only one of many people who are documented as saying an underground facility or tunnels are by this house. Okay, next bullet point. Lab reports show the size of pellets removed from my foot were 2.5 sizes different than what was in my gun. This proves that I wasn't shot with my gun. Okay. So here's the lab report showing the size that's removed. Here's the shotgun shell showing the size. And we look here on the chart, and there's 2.5 sizes different. It happens to be, the size removed happens to be the same size as Glazer safety slugs. That's a pellet-filled plastic tip bullet. And we're going to find out in a minute that's really important. And then I also have a picture of the entrance wound and the exit wound location. So it shows you the shooter's gun was about 2 inches above ground level, and it was level. So they're standing under my house waiting for me to walk by and pull the trigger when I walk by. Okay, I already been told that there's a trap door here, and Ricky said he used to go in the tunnels underneath this house, etc. Okay. The surgeon's report shows that he removed a large amount of plastic from the wound, which would not be found in a shotgun blast. This proves that I wasn't shot with my gun. Okay, so there was a large amount of plastic and lead pellet debris. This is the surgeon's report. Okay, well then all of a sudden people are trying to cover up this capital attempted murder. Go, there's plastic in the wadding of a shotgun shell, and they forget all the other evidence, right? But here we got the ER doctor over here said he removed the plastic wad before surgery in the ER. The thing is that the evidence showing I wasn't shot with a shotgun. So if I wasn't shot with a shotgun, there never was a shotgun wadding. Okay. And come to find out, the ER doctor was the brother-in-law of the ex-wife, and she's alleged to be involved in the shooting. Okay. Here's the next one. Lisa Rogers was documented saying I was shot with a .45 handgun, which fits the space requirements in that small room. I was in my utility room, tiny room. My shotgun's 4 foot long, okay? I mean, right from the beginning, I could never fit the shotgun in that, from where I was shot from. It didn't physically fit. And but then here, this answers it, because she's, you're not shot with a .45, so somehow she knew I was shot with a .45, and that's a handgun, and that does fit the space requirements. Okay, so, and Glazer safety slugs, pellet filled plastic tip bullets make it for size .45 gun. Okay, now stolen voice recorder had recorded burglar alarms gone before I was shot, proving that I was shot during a home invasion. Okay, and so property stolen by MPD to cover up failed murder attempt. So basically, the nurse, documents me saying there's a voice recorder, burglar alarms were going off, white voice recorder, that proved, I was shot during a home invasion. Okay, Rodriguez knew about that. Then Rodriguez and her friends think of my house. They're the secret police. We find that out 6 years later, right? Okay, well. 2 years afterwards, we find an internal police report where this officer Chandler says, oh, I found the voice recorder and I checked it into evidence, or it was checked into evidence. But that was a lie. Chandler lied. It is not in evidence. There's a picture of it. And why is this voice recorder important? Because it recorded the burglar alarms going off in my home before I shot. And my first call for a burglary was 14 months before that. By the time I shot, I'd called the police, the Texas Rangers, the FBI, and the DEA about these repeated burglaries at my house. And then I had a voice recorder proving, that burglars were breaking into my house when I shot. I was shot during a home invasion. The camera log files show that the former secret police disabled my outside cameras minutes after I crawled out, and then attempted to disable the inside camera before they were seen searching drawers, stealing evidence, and staging the crime scene. Okay. On the left here, this is the Windows event log. This camera was connected to my computer, and that computer was rebooted manually at 3:15 a.m. on 1/29/12. Police report shows no police in my home. Okay, let's get that. No police in my home. Minutes after this camera was an attempt to disable that camera, it actually started it and they didn't know it. So that's what caught the secret police, because there was no report of them being in my house. Nobody would have known where that stolen evidence went. The evidence that I told Rodriguez about, it would have just been mysteriously missing and nobody would have been the wiser, except they accidentally started the camera trying to disable the camera. Naylor and Woodward disabled the outside camera minutes after I crawled out. Okay, they're the first two to show up. It took 6 years and $2,000 reward to get the former secret police identified, and come to find out they were from different counties, states, and agencies. And you get people, don't you think police would be in the house after a shooting? Hey, no, let me tell you what. They tried to disable the camera. They never planned on getting caught. Not a single one of them's names on the police report. I had their pictures. I sent it to the police, the Texas Rangers, the FBI, the Attorney General. Nobody could name them. I had to pay a private investigator, and 6 years later we find out they're police. Because up until then, they were just criminals dressed like police. So don't tell me they were here on normal business. This wasn't normal business. They were sneaking to my house to steal evidence that I told them about to cover up a premeditated, for-profit, capital attempted murder. Okay, and this comes from the private investigator when he was texting me the names of the secret police that were in my house. There's one name that we found in the reports that wasn't there, named Matt Davis. Okay, and so that ain't mentioned. But the first law enforcement officer to arrive at my home was Martin County Sheriff John Word, who's not dispatched. He suspected he was in the underground facility when I was shot, and possibly the shooter or with the shooter. Okay, and he's a now disgraced sheriff that quit Martin County. He got caught getting drunk with an inmate and getting this devil tattoo thing or whatever, and Santa Muerte tattoo, Saint of Death or whatever. And so anyway, that's a news story. You can Google him if you want. But the private investigator said he was the very first person caught on video arriving at my house minutes after I crawled out. It's time-stamped, okay? And what's just interesting, this just come in here a minute ago. I don't even know this person. Is Zoe Berry tags this other guy, or Thomas Powell or whatever. I know this guy really well. She's talking about Woodward, And then she says he went missing and no one has heard from him and can't get a hold of him. And that's real interesting right there. I know he was recently arrested for some domestic assault, aggravated assault, or something like that. And so the second law enforcement officer to arrive was Midland County Sheriff Deputy Mike Naylor, and he died in October 2014. Remember, I'm shot in January 2012. There's the first two, Naylor and Woodward, that showed up, and I had their pictures for all these years, and all these years before we finally got them identified, and come to find out one of them dies here supposedly in the line of duty. That's the official story anyway. It's kind of interesting. You got two secret police dead, because it's been mentioned before. If, let's say, Naylor was gonna testify against the other secret police, that would give them motive to murder him, right? Doesn't that make sense? Okay. And then here's the second secret police that's dead. Okay. And basically Chad Simpson was a Midland K-9 police officer, and he murdered Sandra Simpson and then killed himself and orphaned them two babies. Okay. Midland police officer shoots while self and a parent murders suicide. And then my private investigator found a witness that says that Chad told him that he was in my house. Okay, and so Chad Simpson is a secret police, and he dies 2 months after Naylor. Once again, here, what if now Chad was going to testify against the other secret police? Wouldn't they have motive to murder him? And so that question's asked. And of course there's murder, suicide, and no witnesses. So right now you have 2 police officers, 2 law enforcement officers, and a policeman's wife all dead connected to the murder attempt on my life. Okay, this home had a long history of burglaries, with my first call being 14 months before the murder attempt. By the time I was shot, I had called the police, the Texas Rangers, the FBI, the DA, and here's the first 2 police reports on that. The first one comes in November, okay, it's hard to read there, but November 9th, 2010, and the second one come in a couple months later on January 8th, 2011, and that's the first time I heard somebody in the attic, and there was other calls that come in. Okay, so we established a history of burglaries, and I'm shot during another burglary. Okay, multiple people are documented as saying underground facility and or tunnels is near this home. It's suspected to be in the location of the famous oil show prostitution parties that everybody's heard of, and where a young girl was murdered at in 2010 when she refused to prostitute. My friend was there and told me about that murder. Okay, here, this video is a phone call, a secretly recorded phone call. This woman says there's 4 3-bedroom homes, 25 foot deep, each costing over $1 million apiece. Ricky Ronaldo, he writes and tells me he used to live in my house. He said him and his brothers used to go in the tunnels underneath this house. Okay, that's a death threat. I've got in another place from Lance Eggleston. But basically, he's confirming the underground access. He says, remember, we know where you are. We have access to your residence at all times. So that confirms the access. Okay, and here's a Google Earth, and if you look at this Google Earth picture, it looks like a big ditch was cut here coming from the back of a Home Depot right directly towards my house. Okay, here's another guy, Eric, and he says, I've been in the tunnels under your house. And then here's a Rhonda Denman Rogers said, the half block away, which I hit that a minute ago. That's a compilation. Okay. The ex-wife is alleged to be involved in the shooting by her former boyfriend, who is documented as saying that he thought she had a lot to do with the shooting for the things she said, and that she threatened to have him killed too. This document was submitted in court as evidence, and that's the protective order hearing. Okay, and he asked me, you think she had anything to do with it? And I said, I don't think she was in town. I think she knows who did. He says, I think she had a lot to do with it from the things she told me, and she threatened to have me killed too. Okay. Okay, it was found out 2 years later that the ex-wife went to elementary and junior high with Detective Rosa Rodriguez, as they were lifelong friends. Rosa had met me at the 7-Eleven minutes after I crawled out, and she's the person that I told that now stolen proof is at my house. It was Rosa Rodriguez and the ex-wife that called me delusional in court. Okay, if you remember that. And also, it's not in here on this post today, but I had recorded the recording where she threatened me with extortion threat if I didn't pay $1,800 a month. Then she was going to tell everybody I was crazy, and I have her recorded saying that, And then when court come, that's what they did. They called me delusional. Her and her friend Rosa Rodriguez. Okay, and this was transcript of the court. Yeah, I've known her. We went to school and I guess elementary and junior high together. Okay, and so all that time here, Rosa had met me at the 7-Eleven. At the time, I'd just been shot. This police officer shows up, and I'm thinking, finally, the police are going to do something. Thank God, the crimes are going to end. I felt this relief, not knowing that she was involved in the crimes and friends with the ex-wife I'd filed divorce on just a few weeks before, 5 days before, actually. Okay, this is a proof on the timestamps on the X-rays. Basically, the ER doctor, who turned out to be my brother-in-law of the ex-wife that I didn't know about, okay, he orders 3 X-rays at 11:37. This secret lab tech called named User and Interface canceled his orders and reordered 2 X-rays. Oh, why did he do that? Okay, well then the timestamps on the faked X-rays come back at 11:27 before they were even ordered. Okay, and why? Because they took somebody else's foot and put my name on it. Okay, so here's the medical record showing that. So it's further proof that my X-rays were faked. Okay, and X-rays were faked, and then I was intentionally maimed and mutilated. Okay, and this is one of, even with the huge amount of irrefutable evidence, often get death threats such as this, along with stalking, harassment, slander, and repeated calls for me to sell my home and move or be murdered. It should be clear why people want me to move, right? Because of the underground facility, right? It's going to expose that, that they tried to kill me in a home. It's going to expose that we had a dozen police that were involved. It's going to expose the faked X-rays and the maiming and the mutilation, and they murdered the girl at the oil show party, and they murdered the last homeowner. Yeah, they don't want anybody to find that underground facility Rhonda Denman Rogers said was here. Okay, and I showed you this a minute ago, Lance. We know where you sleep. We have access to residence all times. No one will ever believe your story. We will come again, and you will be silenced, not if but when. And I wrote back, when are you going to murder me, Lance? That's what's going on in Midland, Texas.